You are not in competition with anyone but who you were yesterday. That truth, once it settles into your spirit, changes everything. It silences the noise of comparison, the scrolling through highlights of other people's lives, the restless hunger to match someone else's pace. It invites you to turn inward and realize the only race that matters is the one you're running against your former self. Too many waste their energy trying to keep up with a world that was never designed to define their worth. What if the only metric that mattered was, are you better today than you were yesterday? Every day presents a choice. You can look left and right and exhaust yourself chasing shadows, or you can look in the mirror and confront the real opponent. That reflection won't lie. That reflection knows how many shortcuts you've taken, how many excuses you've made, how often you've traded discipline for comfort. And that's okay, because progress doesn't begin in perfection. It begins in honesty. The goal is not to outshine others. It's to outgrow yourself. Growth is personal. It's raw, unfiltered, and often invisible to the world. But when you commit to it, everything else eventually aligns. There's power in showing up for yourself. There's transformation in holding yourself accountable, even when no one's watching. That's the part people don't post online. That's the part no applause accompanies, but those silent wins. Those early mornings when you chose to grind, those late nights when you kept going, those private battles you fought with your fears, those are the victories that build greatness. Because every small decision to be better than you were yesterday compounds. You don't wake up successful. You build it brick by brick with discipline, consistency, and intention. Stop asking, why? Don't I have what they have? Start asking, what am I doing with what I have? The mindset of comparison is a thief. It steals your joy, your gratitude, your focus. While you're watching others sprint in their lane, you're stumbling in yours. Not because you're weak, but because your eyes are everywhere except forward. Focus brings clarity. When you stop measuring your steps by someone else's path, you begin to carve your own with purpose. Understand this. Nobody else has your fingerprint. That means nobody else can live your life. Your experiences, your pain, your setbacks, they've all prepared you for a path that is uniquely yours. Why dilute your destiny trying to replicate someone else's? Your only job is to get better, one choice at a time. Today, speak with more intention, move with more discipline, think with more clarity, serve with more love, heal with more patience. That's growth. That's winning. There will always be someone ahead of you. There will always be someone behind. But that's irrelevant. The only question is, where are you compared to yesterday? If you quit yesterday, did you try today? If you doubted yourself yesterday, did you speak life into yourself today? If you avoided the hard work yesterday, did you lean into the grind today? You don't need to be 10 steps ahead. You just need to be one step better, one more rep. One more page, one more minute of focus. One less excuse. When you internalize that truth, you stop moving from fear and start moving from faith. Faith in the process. Faith in your pace. Faith in the unseen progress that doesn't always show results immediately, but is still working behind the scenes. Don't let impatience sabotage what discipline is building. Just because it's slow doesn't mean it's failing. Every step forward, no matter how small, is still progress. You don't plant a seed and expect a tree the next morning. You water it. You nourish it. You give it time. That's the same with self-growth. Every morning you wake up, you have another opportunity to prove to yourself that you're serious about your vision. Not by making grand gestures, but by doing the small, consistent things that your future self will thank you for. Wake up and choose focus. Choose effort, choose discipline. Choose to become the version of you that exists on the other side of excuses. Because when you stop competing with others and start competing with your former self, you unlock a version of you that's focused, grounded, and unshakable. It's not about shouting to the world that you're better. It's about quietly becoming better. It's about putting in the work when no one claps. It's about becoming so aligned with your purpose that validation is no longer your fuel, growth is. And once you tap into that level of internal fire, distractions lose their grip. Opinions lose their weight, failure loses its power, because you're no longer trying to win at life by beating someone else. You're winning because you refuse to settle for who you were yesterday. Asterisk, this path is about progress, not perfection. You're going to stumble, you're going to mess up, you're going to fall short. But if you keep showing up, if you keep learning, if you keep growing, you're already ahead. Every time you get back up, you become more resilient. Every time you own your flaws, you become stronger. Every time you ignore the noise and focus on the work, you get closer to the life you were born to live. Asterisk, the real reward isn't the success. It's who you become on the way there. And if you've been trying to keep up with everyone else, take this as your wake-up call. Turn your attention inward, reflect, reset, refocus, because there's only one person who can stop you, and you've already met them in the mirror. So rise up, not to prove others wrong, but to prove yourself right. Show the world, and more importantly, show yourself what happens when you stop competing and start evolving. Asterisk. You owe it to yourself to stop showing up for people who wouldn't do the same for you. That truth can be uncomfortable, even painful, but it's the kind of pain that leads to clarity. For too long, people spend their energy, their time, and their emotional bandwidth on relationships, environments, and commitments that are draining instead of fulfilling. There comes a time when you have to stop bending over backwards for others and start standing tall for yourself. Asterisk, it's not about becoming cold. It's not about becoming bitter. It's about becoming better, stronger, more in tune with your purpose. You are not responsible for carrying people who refuse to walk. You are not obligated to sacrifice your mental health for someone else's comfort. There's a line between compassion and self-neglect, and once you cross that line too many times, you forget what it feels like to prioritize your own peace. That's not strength, that's self-abandonment. Asterisk, there is a difference between loyalty and slavery. Loyalty says, I'm here with you because we lift each other up. Slavery says, I'm here even though it's killing me. And many people, without realizing it, confuse one for the other. They stay in friendships out of history, not growth. They stay in family dynamics out of guilt, not love. They say yes when their soul is screaming no, just to avoid conflict. But avoiding conflict externally creates conflict internally. And that's not a price worth paying anymore. Asterisk, when you begin to truly focus on yourself, you'll notice the shift. You'll see how many people were only attached to your access, not your essence. They liked the version of you that was always available, always giving, always saying yes. But once you start setting boundaries, once you begin to choose yourself, they fall back. And that silence? That's not rejection, it's revelation. It shows you exactly who was there for your value and who was there for your vulnerability. Asterisk, the first step to focusing on yourself is permission. Giving yourself the green light to walk away from anything that's not growing you. That might mean letting go of friendships that have become one-sided. It might mean saying no to invitations that you used to feel obligated to attend. It might even mean taking a break from people you love because right now you need to rebuild from within, and that's okay. You don't have to explain your healing to anyone. Asterisk, people often say, but I don't want to hurt them. What about how it's hurting you? Every time you shrink to make others comfortable, you're reinforcing the belief that their needs are more important than yours. But that's a lie. You matter. Your peace matters. Your growth matters. And if being good to yourself disrupts someone else's comfort, that says more about them than it does about you. Asterisk, choosing yourself is not a betrayal. It's a breakthrough. You begin to see who you are when the noise quiets down. When you're no longer performing for people who never truly saw you. When you wake up and realize you were trying to earn love from people who didn't even love themselves. That realization stings, but it also sets you free. You don't have to beg for a seat at a table you were never meant to sit at. Build your own table, fill your own cup. Serve from your overflow, not your emptiness. Asterisk, when you stop showing up for people who wouldn't do the same for you, you create space. Space for new relationships. Space for peace. Space for opportunities that align with your vision. People who truly love you won't make you question your worth. They won't guilt trip you for choosing your own well-being. They'll support your boundaries because they understand theirs too. And when you align with those people, you realize how much energy you wasted trying to force connection where there was only convenience. Asterisk, there's nothing noble about draining yourself for others. There's nothing heroic about being constantly exhausted from emotional labor that goes unreciprocated. Real strength is knowing when to walk away. Real love is knowing when to let go. And real focus is choosing not to be distracted by people who don't deserve your time. You can't keep trying to heal in the same environment that made you sick. Sometimes the most revolutionary act of self-love is simply saying no more. Asterisk, when you start putting yourself first, people will talk. Let them call you selfish. Let them misunderstand. Let them be uncomfortable. That's not your burden to carry. What they see as selfish, you'll know is survival. What they call ego, you'll recognize as evolution. You were not born to be a doormat for someone else's dysfunction. You were not created to constantly give and never receive. There is strength in protecting your energy. There is power in saying, I choose me. Asterisk, it's in that power that you begin to rise. You start to set standards instead of settling. You stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop chasing validation and start living in truth. You realize that the real ones will stay, and the ones who disappear were never truly with you. That kind of clarity, that's worth more than gold. Asterisk, the moment you stop showing up for people who wouldn't do the same for you is the moment you begin showing up for yourself. Fully, authentically, without compromise. And from that place, everything changes, not overnight, not without pain, but gradually, deeply, and permanently. You become the version of yourself you were always meant to be. The version that isn't afraid to put your own name on the list. The version that doesn't wait for permission to heal, to grow, to thrive. The version that finally understands focusing on yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Asterisk. Stop looking for validation. That's where it begins. The moment you stop seeking permission to show up as your full self is the moment you start to unlock your real potential. Too many people are sitting on their talents, watering down their vision, and suppressing their voice because they're waiting for someone to give them the green light. But you don't need a green light. You are the green light. You don't need applause before you start moving. In fact, waiting for applause before action is the fastest way to become stagnant. Greatness doesn't announce itself. It's carved in silence and solitude. In the shadows when no one is watching. Asterisk, we live in a world addicted to attention, where everyone wants to be seen before they've built anything real. They chase likes, comments, shares, digital affirmations to validate their existence. But the truth is, external validation is a shaky foundation to build your life on. Because what happens when they stop clapping? What happens when your post doesn't go viral, when no one retweets your idea, when your best effort is met with silence? If your confidence is tied to the response of the crowd, you'll never develop the strength to stand on your own. You'll rise and fall with public opinion. And that's no way to live. You weren't born to perform for the crowd, you were born to pursue purpose. Asterisk. The people who make the biggest impact in this world are the ones who choose to believe in themselves when no one else does. They don't ask for permission to be great, they just get to work. They don't need someone to tell them they're enough before they start building. They understand that the act of showing up consistently, unapologetically, is what separates the dreamers from the doers. They create without applause, they move without a committee. They believe before results ever show up. Asterisk, if you keep asking people, what do you think of this? Every time you want to try something new, you'll stay in the cycle of hesitation. And hesitation kills momentum. The truth is, some people aren't qualified to see what you're building. Their vision is too small to understand your mission. Their belief system is too limited to grasp the scale of your potential. And that's okay? Because your purpose isn't a democracy, it's a calling. And callings aren't always understood by the crowd. Asterisk, you've got to learn how to clap for yourself. Speak over yourself, encourage yourself, build yourself. This isn't ego, it's necessity. If you're always dependent on external praise, your growth will be conditional. It will be delayed by rejection. It will be silenced by criticism. You've got to reach a place where even if no one sees the work you're putting in, you see it. You recognize the effort, the sacrifice, the pain, the discipline, and that alone becomes your fuel. Asterisk, when you stop looking for validation, you free up space to focus. You stop looking left and right and start moving forward. You stop trying to fit into their mold and begin designing your own lane. You stop caring who's watching and instead care about what you're becoming, because transformation happens in secret. Evolution happens when you're locked in and tuned out. The deeper you go into your craft, your passion, your calling, the less you'll feel the need to explain yourself. Not everyone will get it, and that's a sign you're probably doing something worth building. Asterisk, it takes courage to walk alone. It takes strength to be misunderstood. It takes vision to build what hasn't been built. But that's what leaders do. That's what creators do. They see it before anyone else does. They trust themselves when there's nothing to show yet. That early belief, that unwavering focus, that grounded discipline, it becomes the foundation for everything that follows. Because once the fruit comes, once the results show up, once the world starts to notice, it's easy to believe. But belief before the breakthrough, that's rare. That's where the magic lives. Asterisk, you don't need to prove yourself to people who don't even believe in themselves. You don't need to broadcast your every move just to feel seen. Let your work speak. Let your consistency echo louder than your announcements. Let your execution be your explanation. The best validation is transformation. Let them see who you've become, not just what you say you'll do. You were never meant to play small just to make others feel comfortable. Your light was never meant to be dimmed to fit into someone else's shadow. Asterisk, there's a version of you waiting on the other side of your hesitation. That version is bold, relentless, confident, not because the world told them to be, but because they decided to be. They stopped checking for validation and started checking in with themselves. They replaced doubt with discipline. They replaced fear with faith. They no longer needed people to tell them they were worthy. They remembered that they always were. Asterisk, this isn't about arrogance. It's about ownership. Owning your lane. Owning your vision. Owning your time, your energy, your direction. That's what happens when you stop waiting for permission. You stop living for applause and start living for alignment. You stop asking, do they see me? And start asking, am I honoring my gift? Because when your purpose becomes more important than your popularity, you move differently. You wake up with fire. You show up with intention. You grind with clarity. Asterisk, so stop asking for people to cosign your greatness. You don't need a committee to get started. You don't need their approval to take the first step. You don't need the algorithm to recognize your worth. You already have what it takes. You just need to back yourself like no one else ever has. And when you do that, when you lock in and go all in, the world won't be able to ignore what you've built. But by then, you won't even need their validation because you'll already know exactly who you are. Asterisk.